going to dive right into the next panel of the day. I think it's amazing sometimes when science fiction just sort of becomes reality. And the next panel is discussing a topic that really is truly just that. It seems like it must be science fiction, but it is reality with neural implants. So up next, we have Paolo Ardoino, CEO of Tether, and Marcus Gerhardt. Please give them a warm welcome to the stage.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for being here. We are at Bitcoin conference, and we are going to talk about superhuman intelligence. We have a very, very cozy background with a fire pit and a brain. So I would like to use this opportunity to talk about, as you know, freedom in general as a broader topic, but also how freedom will look like in the future and how important it is to start thinking about the evolution of freedom throughout the innovation of the next decades, through AI, through brain-computer interfaces, and how we can start thinking about it today in order to protect the success of freedom in the future. So in order to do that, I think there is no one better than Marcus, the CEO of BlackRock Neurotech, to give you an introduction to what the company is doing, and then we are going to talk about the importance of this technology for the next decades. Marcus?
Thank you, Paolo. What a privilege to be here and to let you in on the story of brain-computer interface that is a reality today, even if in many regards it was founded in science fiction. And you referred to some of it just yesterday in your talk, which I thought was intriguing. And we share a passion for Asimov and his concept of the HVAC. But the brain-computer interface is a reality today. And so maybe if I can just briefly give you an insight on how we created BlackRock and how we created the world's leading brain-computer interface. The story goes back more than 3 decades. I meet my co-founder, Florian, at high school, of all places. And it was the kind of high school where people asked each other what they wanted to do later in life. I frankly didn't know, but when I asked him, he responded like this: I want to create the link between artificial and bionic limb. Wow, for a 16-year-old to have a clear vision like that is pretty impressive. We both shared a passion for the patient population. At this school, both of us were helping physically and mentally challenged kids abseil and climb or kayak. And so we both shared that. What Florian had, however, was a deep frustration that technology was not being deployed appropriately to make lives better for this patient population. And as impressive as this vision was with 16, what was even more impressive was that Florian then proceeded to build a career to achieve exactly that. And in 2007, I was on vacation in Mallorca, minding my own business, when Florian flew in to say, I've got IP, we should start a company. I thought he was crazy, but at the same time, I had already bought into this vision as a 16-year-old. So I said, sure, let's do this together. The medical device sector was the worst performing sector in VC history. And the only thing that people would talk about in terms of the brain, and so we had to reference the pacemaker for the brain, was DBS, deep brain stimulation for Parkinson's. That was the only invasive technology really being deployed at the time. Today, the world looks a different place already, and we have devices that help you with your sleep apnea, Inspire with a multi-billion-dollar valuation, and a number of other medical devices. At the time, that was just not the case. And so I suggested that we create a company that was profitable, that generated cash, so that we could weather the storms of fundraising. Little did we know that one day we would rely on and be empowered and enabled by a company and a visionary like Paolo and Tether. But I did have a sense that this was going to take a while and require a lot of investment. We created the company to be the leading provider of tools for the neuroscience research market. And we focused on human research. This had started in 2004, 2005. A chip was implanted in Matt Nagel's head, a little Utah array. We're from Salt Lake City, Utah. And if you imagine a little chip, 3 by 3 millimeters, I can say that here, it makes sense. In the US, nobody understands what I'm talking about. But 3 by 3 millimeters with 100 little pins, like antennas, that's inserted in the brain and records signals, but also stimulates into the brain. And this little chip allowed a phenomenal discovery of applications. And today, while the two of us are alone here on the Fireside, and that's a true privilege, I bring with me more than 50 patients, 4 of them are on my t-shirt here, who have experienced phenomenal, groundbreaking discoveries using this very chip, a brain-computer interface. And among the discoveries, Matt Nagel, the first one, who wrote an email using his thoughts alone, but it's gone far beyond that. We have discovered motor sensory control, so people controlling things with their mind. Most impressively, Nathan Copeland, car accident, aged 18, is able to control a prosthetic arm, shake Barack Obama's hands, then fist bump him. And what's more is he not only has motor sensory control, he also has sensory perception. We stimulate his brain because in that prosthetic hand, in the fingers are sensors. The sensors pick up the temperature of Barack Obama's hands and he says, "Mr. President, your hand is warm." And the president says, "Look, I'm a lot more nervous about meeting you than you are about meeting me." And how's that possible? Well, the sensory feedback goes from that prosthetic hand into his brain and tells Nathan that what he is touching, no, what the prosthetic hand is touching is warm and not cold. I mean, that just blows your mind, doesn't it? So phenomenal discoveries over the last 15 years, more than 50 patients to date. And maybe let me just raise one more case before I close out where BlackRock is today. And it's the case of Casey. Casey is early 40s, and he gets ALS. That's a neurodegenerative disease where you lose function. And it can get pretty acute, all the way to locked in, which is to say that you cannot communicate anymore with your external environment because everything is shut down, your facial muscles, everything is shut down, your eyes close, you are in a black hole. That is the latter stage of ALS. You're in locked in mode. And we already had a patient many years ago where we were able to implant the BCI before he went into locked in. And so when he was in locked in, he was still able to communicate with his loved ones. And his very first sentence was, "Move me, my ass hurts." He'd been lying in that bed for far too long. And then at 1 o'clock in the morning, his wife is communicating with him. They're in a center in Europe, in fact, and the algorithm kind of stops working. The PhD engineer wakes up, he says, "Okay, let's close this off now. Something's wrong, something's not quite working. Let's resume tomorrow." And the wife says, "No way. This word that your algorithm is getting hung up on exists. I created this word with my husband 15 years ago, and it was a Bavarian dialect word that only these two people even knew. So Siri, eat your heart out, because a brain-computer interface can recreate a word that only two people in the world even know." And from that ALS patient, we go to Casey, who is early 40s, gets ALS, and in 2023, the disease progresses so far that he is no longer able to talk to his 4-year-old daughter. Just imagine that. You can no longer communicate with your child. And thankfully, he has BlackRock's brain-computer interface, and at the Institute, UCD, in the US, is able to interact with his speech cortex in such a way that this device allows him to quite fluently communicate again. We use AI to recreate his voice even. We use old videos and what his voice sounded like, and we recreate that using AI. And he is able to communicate with his daughter. He is able to tell her bedtime stories by reading a book. How phenomenal is that? he is what we would call a super user today. He uses it 70 hours a week. So think about your working day and what that means, but this individual is truly empowered. He is enabled. He has independence back. And the restoration of function, the addressing of neurological disorders, that is what drives, to this day, Florian and I. And in that vision, we were lucky enough to find Paolo, to find Tether, to support us in this endeavor to make that a reality for everyone.
Thank you, Marcus. And I think when I think about Tether, I think we are a very lucky company. We found ourselves in becoming profitable, and it's important to support companies like BlackRock Neurotech because they represent the future for people that don't have many other options and where they had a destiny of having degenerative illnesses. And so it's important to continue the science. So we are scientists at Tether. We are thinkers. We come from Bitcoin, from the ethos of Bitcoin, but we are looking at the world as an environment where only one thing will not help humanity. You need to look at all the technology and support the good technologies that will protect freedom, that will protect the future of humans. So I want to spend a few minutes to explain why the hell Tether, that is a stablecoin company, is a stable company, as I discussed yesterday, has invested in BlackRock Neurotech and is supporting this technology. Definitely, the patient side is the medical aspect is extremely fundamental. Again, you made a great case. Imagine to be a father or mother of a family, not being able to speak to your children. That is just almost impossible to imagine, because it's one of the saddest things. But how we can also think about the technology and what impact this technology will have in the future is also a huge driver for myself and for Tether as well, because for every technology you need to understand what is the potential impact that will have in the future of society. And to me, the brain-computer interfaces are clearly one of the 2-3 most important technologies of humanity in the next 10 to 20 years. We know that artificial intelligence and robotics are moving at a great pace, very fast pace. Robotics, we see robots now doing jumps, backflips, they get kicked down and then they get back up. They can run as fast, much faster than a human. They do the craziest things. Plus, AI is moving very, very fast as well. Already today, AI is very good in coding. In 3 years, will be the best coder in the world. In 5 years, even more so. And when AI will become the best coder in the world, AI will be able to auto-modify itself as almost like a generic algorithm that goes at the pace of 1 million improvements per second potentially, and will go through a breadth and complexity that we cannot express, and maybe we cannot comprehend for a few reasons. And that's why I'm interested in brain-computer interfaces, because I think that the brain is almost the perfect machine. We see big AI companies saying that in order to recreate the brain, they need to create tens of gigawatts of electricity. The brain uses like few watts, is like almost the same energy of a potato, and then we think that it's smart to try to create tens of gigawatts of electricity to recreate one single brain. That is ridiculous, but that is for another moment. But anyway, we are trying to compete with the brain and recreate the brain in a digital form, while the brain is already digital. But the brain has a huge limitation today, in my opinion, is that the only way for the brain to communicate to the outside world, that is the most important function of the brain, is through analog means. So you have a digital thing, and you communicate to the world, and you get information from the world through an analog communication channel. Well, you have two communication channels, actually. When you think about something, in order to communicate to the outside, either you type it, or you say it through words. So use voice or fingers. Both of them are analog communication instruments. And also they rely on a compression system that is called natural language, like English, Italian, German. So the English language has 50,000 words, pretty much. And we pretend that the English language, or any language, pretty much the same amount of words, can express all the complexity and all the infinite angles of the world. Imagine just like a sunset. You look at the sunset, you see how beautiful it is, and in your mind, you can describe every single small shade, every single small detail of that sunset. But then, when you say it, when you describe it, it's a sunset, like one word. Or you can say it's a beautiful sunset, or it's a beautiful pink sunset, 3 words. But it's from 3, 4, 5 words to an infinite amount of details that you have in your mind. So that is an enormous amount of compression that from your digital brain you get to the natural language in order to express your thoughts. That single thing is the huge and biggest limitation factor for humans to be able to compete with the rise of AI and robots with AI, robots plus AI in the future. Because how we can pretend to comprehend information when all the source of information that we ingest and the way we communicate to the world is analog. And so the idea of a brain-computer interface is to also create an hedge for humans and for society against machines and against AI. I understand that might sound a little bit like Matrix and maybe, I'm crazy, but it's not thinking about it is not a solution either. So there is a non-zero chance that that future will happen, and if we don't start thinking about it today, if will happen and when it will happen, then we're completely fucked. So the idea of using and leveraging the medical expertise and and working with patients and understanding the brain, we understand the brain very little. So having also brain-computer interface will help us to understand the brain as we never did before. So why this is important, how we can make sure that while we're trying to build a technology that will liberate humans, actually we don't create a technology that will capture humans and will bring them in a walled garden and will engage them even more. And so the reason why we are building another product called QVAC, yesterday we had the first release, is QVAC is this local AI platform that is able to execute artificial intelligence and to do AI directly on your smartphone. And so the concept of a brain-computer interface plus QVAC, the idea is to create a brain operating system that is fully local, is fully private, that is connected to your brain, that can analyze your thoughts, that can make sure that your thoughts remain private and remain for yourself and for your family. You have full control over your thoughts as you have full control over your money. Exactly, it's what we are trying to do in the BCI space. That's why we're at a Bitcoin conference, but I wanted to have the opportunity to explain what we are doing is because it all comes together. You think about the vision and that we are trying to bring forward Tether, and the next my keynote will try to explain how from the technological standpoint we will try to cover all the angles to build this new worldwide or universal technology layer to support freedom, privacy, and innovation that supports humanity and supports the growth and the future of society rather than trying to support a couple of companies. And so when I think about Neuralink, I see them trying to centralize everything into data centers, same with X, right? So there could be a possibility of creating decentralized data centers, but the same person that is creating or handling a social network in a very centralized way, we cannot expect him and although I think is a genius, we cannot expect him to create something that will be super open and private when it comes to a brain-computer interface. So we wanted, with the BlackRock Neurotech, to think about how this technology could work best for humanity. So if you don't mind, we have, I think, a 1-minute video that we wanted to show. We are a Bitcoin conference, so I think we can showcase something that is very, very cool. If you can play the video.
Hello everyone, my name is Scott Embry and I am a BCI pioneer. So I broke my neck in 1985 and they told me I'd be a complete quadriplegic. And when I found this study and it said control robotic arm or hand with your brain, and I'm like, oh, I've got to do this. I thought that would be the coolest thing in the world to be part of. I have 4 electrodes implanted on my brain. So I'm really excited because today I'm going to try to purchase Bitcoin using my thoughts only. And I will imagine controlling the mouse and clicking on the button of the mouse. Okay, here we go. So you want to give me some down bias? Yeah, it takes me a minute to figure it out, so. Review order, and buy now. All right.
That's it, you did it.
What'd you just do?
I just bought Bitcoin using my brain. Oh my gosh, how excited.
This was,
Let's come a bit closer.
yeah. This was a simple demonstration. We threw it together in just a couple of days. But really, imagine a future where you think about your preferred poem or you think about something and the first 24 words will be your seed, right? So you can do insane amount of things. Your brain could be your wallet. Could be your digital identity. Your brain will be really your key to life, as it should be.
Maybe if I just kind of add to that. So Paolo's talking about a hypothetical case. It's not hypothetical anymore. We actually did this with Scott. And Scott connected to memes, emojis. I find that quite intriguing because at this conference, there's quite a few of those around. You're wearing them around your necklace or your thing at the moment. But we got Scott to think about memes and emojis in his brain to create a 12-word seed phrase. And I'll challenge any of you, and I now talk about enhancement, which is reality even today. So we got Scott to do this, and he created the seed phrase and his password to his accounts in 15 seconds. And I challenge you, if you're interested, at our booth, which is over in the villa, go and see Jessica. She's got an EEG cap that you can wear, and you can try to recreate that. If you beat the 15 seconds, you can have the first BlackRock brain-computer interface for free. Well, for a discount, let's be honest. You can be the first on the list. But, I mean, what I find intriguing about this is we already have signs of enhancement. Scott is one. James, another, has a car accident at young age, leaving him paralyzed. We connected him to a car simulator. He always wanted to drive again. Connected him to a car simulator. Took him minutes to operate it, and within 3 weeks, he was faster than any able-bodied person in the lab using a joystick. 3 milliseconds faster. Why? Because he goes straight from brain to the car. And about a year ago, he drove a car at 30 to 40 miles around a city, full control. Stop, start, change directions. We are living in a world where this is reality. And what you talked about earlier, Paolo, there are so many parallels. One would think BCI at a crypto conference, why Tether as a stable currency? But yesterday you talked about Bitcoin and the control it gives you. Well, what we need to ensure with a brain-computer interface, with HVAC, is control, is agency, that we as human beings own our thoughts. It's our thoughts, it's our data, and it's our decision what to do with that. And that is what we have to enable. To let it run wild would be irresponsible. To assume it's not going to happen is frankly foolish, at the very least naive. And so to, at this stage, think about how we do this, and the fact that you are not just looking at one component, the brain-computer interface, but already thinking about the whole system, the software, the AI that needs to be developed to ensure that agency and that control for us is the sign of true visionary approach. So yeah, just really excited about the future here.
Thank you, Marcus. And I want to say, you saw the current brain-computer interface is wired, but there was a scientific breakthrough, and the current new version of the brain-computer interface is called Neuralace. Will be fully wireless, up to the tune of 100 megabits per second of information coming out from your brain. So this is the scientific progress that you guys are making. It's just insane. So I'm very excited.
So just on that matter, you know, all these topics that even you talked about yesterday, accessibility for Bitcoin, right? These are values that we hold true at BlackRock as well, as we create the brain-computer interface for all of us. What does that mean if we want to have control? We need to ensure accessibility. You made a big point about that yesterday in your discussion with Brandon with regards to Bitcoin and how that was set up. So how do we ensure accessibility? How do we ensure affordability? And most BCI companies today are in an innovation world where they do not think about these concepts. BlackRock has been there for longest, and so we already started thinking about that. We have to have devices that can be built for dollars, not for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so we went and designed the next technology. That next technology needs to last for a very long time. So ideally, it's invisible to the human body. Secondly, it needs to be affordable. We need to be able to manufacture it at low cost. And it's got to be wireless, as you said. So if you imagine that Utah array that I described, the 3 by 3 millimeters, well, and I find it intriguing, I'm showing this for the very first time at a crypto conference and not a BCI conference. Here's the device that has 8,000 channels, not 100, 8,000. You can't see them. And it's invisible to the human body. So there you go, very first one in the world.
Thank you very much, Marcus. That's very cool. Thank you very much, everyone. I hope that you found this entertaining and educative. And go to the BlackRock Neurotech booth and try to beat the 15 seconds to recreate a seed and see if you can get 20% discount on your next brain-computer interface. Thank you, everyone.